The most impactful and the most reliable love is self-love. We all have our varying ideas about what love is. For the sake of this video, I'll define love as an enhanced appreciation that causes people to feel wonderful. And that wonderful feeling that you get, it occurs because you're aware of the great value of the person or thing that you love. To love is to consider someone or something to be of amazing value, and your awareness of that value makes you feel wonderful. To feel loved is to feel like you're someone who holds great value. Feeling like you're valuable feels amazing. Feeling valuable feels empowering, and therefore we naturally want to feel loved. When we feel loved, we feel energized, powerful, and useful. When we feel loved, we feel like we can do anything. Meanwhile, when we do not feel loved, we feel incredibly limited. Furthermore, when we do not feel loved, simultaneously, we're not offering love because we do not have the energy and perspective to do so. It is logical and natural that we need to feel loved. When we feel loved, we have the energy and perspective to spread love. So in order to love, we must first feel loved. This raises the topic of where love comes from. When people think about being loved, they often think about the other people who love them, or they think about the other people who should be loving them. While it is the most natural, wonderful thing to experience love coming from the people who love you, it is not a good idea to rely on other people to satisfy your human need, which is to be loved. Love coming from the people around you, that love is not the love that you rely on, because people will not always be able to show you the love that they have for you. It's important to remember that a person must feel loved in order to show love. Without feeling love, a person does not have the energy, nor do they have the perspective to show you love. Furthermore, even though others may be bending backwards to show this person that they're loved, it's not a question of whether or not people are even loving this person. It's a question of whether or not this person feels loved. It's a question of whether or not this person notices the ways in which people are trying to show them love. So I'll use a fictional romantic couple to illustrate this. David and Brenda have been married for 1 year. On the evening of their first wedding anniversary, Brenda is disappointed to discover that David completely forgot the occasion. This disappointment was just yet another letdown in a series of letdowns. Brenda has felt that David has been distant for months, and to know that he could forget their first wedding anniversary, that made Brenda sad, and it caused her to ask all sorts of questions. The most critical question of all, does David even love her anymore? They hadn't had sex in a long time, and David never seems to be interested. And so Brenda always wonders, is he even attracted to me? The answer to both questions is yes. David loves her, and yes, David is attracted to her. But David certainly has not been showing it, or has he? So remember that a person does not have the energy, nor does a person have the perspective to show love if they do not already feel loved. And also remember that a person can absolutely be loved by other people, but not know that they're being loved by other people. And as this fictional story progresses, please take care to note that no one deserves blame in this situation. Brenda, in tears, brought her questions to David. And this was the first time he had seen her cry since they were married. The sight of her tears was awful, and David was ready to do anything to help Brenda feel secure, and that included coming clean about fears that he had been keeping to himself. David has been worrying about his career for most of that year that they had been married. The couple purchased a new home, and they talked about having children in the near future, and thinking about the economics of their future, David approached his boss with questions about an increased salary and perhaps even a path to a major promotion. The conversation did not go well, and in the following weeks and months, David felt that he had become a target. His boss seemed paranoid that David maybe wanted to outshine him or replace him. And over time, David's assignments became less and less meaningful to the organizational mission. At the same time, his boss complained more and more about David's work, and David began to wonder if he would be fired. And if he was fired, he wondered where he would find other work, and he wondered how he would support his family. While Brenda also has a career, the loss of David's salary would impact their plans for the future. So David was worried, but he didn't want to worry his beautiful new bride. When he first had concerns, he hoped that he was only imagining things. and he hoped that he was maybe just overreacting. But little by little, his boss's minor complaints were starting to add up, and over time, David found himself feeling more worried, and he found himself feeling somewhat alone because he was not sharing this information with his wife. There were a few times when he did try to share what was happening, but Brenda already seemed stressed for some reason, and David never knew what was causing that stress, but he did know that he did not want to add to his wife's stress. What David didn't know was that the stress Brenda was feeling was related to his lack of attention to her. He had become so consumed with trying to outperform at work, so there would be no grounds for a termination, and in the process, he was not romancing his new bride. He was not asking about her day. He was not flirting with her the way that he used to. So in this story, no one is deserving of blame. Remember that a person must feel loved if they're going to have the perspective and energy to show love. David was not feeling loved at work. He was feeling despised. He was not feeling valued, and naturally he was filled with fear. Because he was not feeling loved or valued at work, his perspective shifted in an adverse way. To David, he felt that he was showing love for his wife by keeping his burden from her. Knowing that she had something on her mind, knowing that she was already feeling stressed, he just couldn't add to her stress. From David's adverse perspective, showing love meant not burdening his wife with his fear. Meanwhile, living in fear meant that his romantic and sexual desire was limited. What David perceived as love, Brenda was perceiving that exact same thing as neglect. David spent all of his time at work, and it wasn't like that before they got married. It was so different. And Brenda had this recurring thought, you know what? This is not what I signed up for. So sometimes Brenda would feel sad, and as David was picking up on that, he would respond by creating distance because he did not want to burden Brenda with his fears. This increased distance would sometimes frustrate Brenda, and even though she never realized this, David was picking up on her frustration. Neither David nor Brenda were feeling loved. Therefore, neither David nor Brenda had the energy, nor did they have the perspective to convey the love that they have for each other. It only takes one of them to feel the energy and perspective that comes from feeling loved. If either one of them could feel loved, either one of them could solve this problem so incredibly fast. The solution is self-love. And self-love is the solution because whether you're feeling loved or not, you always know that you should be loved. You always want that love, and you always have the ability to show yourself the love that you deserve. When you love yourself, you get your energy and perspective back. Self-love is impactful for two reasons. The first is that when you do not feel loved, your perspective is hindered. And even though people may be trying to show that they love you, you will not notice that due to your hindered perspective. Whether or not you feel loved is entirely dependent on your perspective. Whether or not you feel love is entirely dependent on your thoughts. Whether or not you feel loved is entirely dependent upon your assumptions. In this fictional story, Brenda was not feeling loved, even though David was doing his best to show love in the only way that he knew how. If Brenda just made herself feel special, if Brenda made herself feel loved, she would feel wonderful, and she wouldn't be asking, "Does David love me?" She would be asking, "What is happening with David? His energy is low. He comes home in a sour mood. What is happening to David at work? And what can I do to let him know that I'm here for him?" In this fictional story, David was not feeling loved, even though Brenda wanted nothing more than to spend time with him. If David just made himself feel loved or valued at work, if David validated for himself that he does an amazing job and that any company would be lucky to have him as an employee, he would feel amazing, and he would just instinctually know what to say to his wife. He wouldn't be worried about burdening her with his concerns at work. Instead, he would confidently say to her, "You know what, things are challenging at work, but I'm doing all that I can to help us secure our financial future. One way or another, we'll deal with this, and I'm glad that we can solve these challenges together." The way that you think is altered and hindered when you do not feel loved. The story that I've been sharing is meant to show that people have things going on in their lives that you just don't know about. And as they struggle with whatever challenges they face, they likely will not show you the love that you know you deserve. It's not that they don't love you. It's that they just cannot show the love that they have when they do not feel loved. Furthermore, if some misunderstanding causes you to feel unloved, as your attention gets hooked on the ways in which you feel unloved, you will just not see the ways that people are trying to show that they love you. Self-love is the answer because you always have the capacity to love yourself. And as you make yourself feel loved, you will begin to notice the ways in which people are showing their love for you. And if you can accept that, the only question left is, how do I love myself? The answer is to consider all of the ways that you want other people to show that they love you, and you just do all those things for yourself. Take responsibility for meeting your own needs at all times. Take responsibility for pleasing and satisfying yourself at all times. If you'll do that, you'll feel loved at all times. This takes practice, especially if you have long held the idea that other people are responsible for making you feel loved. At first, you may find that it doesn't feel as good when you're loving yourself, but in time, you'll come to find that you feel best when you love yourself. And when other people are loving you, that is the wonderful icing on the cake. So these are a few examples of self-love. Think about how you feel when your lover, who is very much appreciating you, looks you in the eyes and says, "I love you." How does that feel to you? That's how you want to feel when you tell yourself that you love you. Think about how it feels when your boss at work appreciates you and looks you in the eyes and said, "You know what? You've done such amazing work. This is going to make everything better. We could not have done this without you." Think about how that feels and know that this is how you should feel when you appreciate your own work. Think about how it feels when your parent or your parental figure says, "I just love you just because you are you." That's unconditional love. That's the most uplifting kind of love. And the way that it feels when someone shows you unconditional love, that's how you want to feel when you love yourself. So again, I ask, how have you been expecting other people to show that they love you? Start doing all those things for yourself and feel just as loved, if not more loved, because this is you loving you. When you decide that self-love is primary, you'll feel the most stable that you've ever felt. You'll feel the most uplifted that you've ever felt. You'll feel the most consistently loved. And that's because while others won't always have it in them to show the love that they have for you, that capacity for self-love is always in you. Our societies haven't really been teaching this self-love. And what that means is that lots of us have very little practice with it, but that's okay. It doesn't matter how good you are at self-love, so long as you just start the practice now and forever grow your self-love. And you will know that you're growing your self-love by using this gauge. Your self-love is peaking when you're no longer negatively impacted when people say mean things or try to suggest that you are unworthy or bad. Your self-love is peaking when you consistently feel secure, energized, full of potential, and you're appreciative of who you are right now. When you have self-love, you have the courage to do what you know is right, even when others do not understand you. When you have self-love, you're proud of exactly who you are today, and you stand confidently, and that confidence attracts the people around you to show that love that they have for you. When you have self-love, you don't feel needy or addicted when you're in a relationship. Instead, you just feel whole and secure. And you enjoy the time that you spend with your lover, and you're never worried about whether or not they will be around tomorrow. And furthermore, even if you were to part ways, you would just know that you would still live a full and happy life. You would feel confident and secure, and that confidence actually attracts your lover to stay. When you have self-love, you're confident in your professional life, and you just get it. You know that you're incredibly valuable, and you know the impact that you have. When you have self-love in your professional life, you know exactly what you're meant to be doing. And you know that you don't just deserve to be doing that job. You know that all of the people around you are benefiting and they appreciate the value of the work that you've done. Self-love will solve the overwhelming majority of challenges that you face in life. But most importantly, self-love is the thing that gives you exactly what you've been looking for this whole time. Self-love makes you feel valuable and amazing. And the real way to find out that this is true is just to have the experience of your enhanced self-love. So if this has resonated with you, if you believe this to be true, your next step is just to immerse yourself in self-love. And you do that by doing for yourself all the things that you think others should be doing for you in order to show their love for you. Life really is amazing with self-love. Sending good vibes.